Good evening.
What a large group, right. I'm Hank Roubicek. Most of you know me, and I'm really so glad that you're here. This is a very important event this evening because we will be giving an award, the Colson-Hurton Award, which is commensurate to what this conference is all about, which is about education, about instructional growth, about cultivating our understanding about storytelling as an art and even a science. Also, we're going to be listening to a wonderful, wonderful keynote speaker. I know Lynn, kind of, sort of. We met, although I don't know where or when. At my age, that's pretty typical. But just like the song, where or when, I don't know. But she certainly made an impact on me, and I think she'll make a tremendous impact on you as well. I want to begin by talking about our sponsors. And these are very special people because we're all supportive of TSA, but these individuals really went above and beyond the call of duty, so to speak, to be extraordinarily supportive of this association, and we need all kinds of support, whether it be financial or emotional. We need that, and these folks have really, really come across. Rick Davis, John Hale, Sandra Aguirre-Madonna, Timothy Couch, Tim Couch, Donna and Jerry Ingham, Pam Pipkin, Michael Brundy, David Claunch, Valerie Kimball, Barbara Bridgewater, and Tarrant Area Guild. Let's give them a round of applause for their tremendous support. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, forgot them, yes. National Endowment of the Arts, Humanities Texas Commission of the Arts, and which one is this? This is the National Endowment of the Humanities. We want to thank them as well. Okay, thank you. Now this is a lot of pressure for me because some of you know I'm doing a workshop tomorrow on how to be an MC, and I have this nightmare that some of you will be walking out of here saying, "What, are you kidding me? I'm getting the hell out of that. I want my money back," and whatever. So in any event, I'm under a little bit of pressure, but I'll give it my very best shot. The Colson-Hurton Award is a very important one. We haven't done that for a while. We did it at a festival a couple of years ago because we haven't had a conference for a while. But when I think about this particular award, there are a lot of things that actually come to mind. The Colson-Hurton Award represents the mission of our conference because the award is bestowed upon a member who can successfully integrate storytelling and education into a magical equation. I want to repeat that because this morning, David did a marvelous job at talking about the importance of connection, which is really the importance of this conference. It's not just a matter of connecting as individuals, which we know and which we do, but if you're a communication specialist, and a couple of us are, we know that all the features of communication are inextricably related to create one very powerful process. So in storytelling, we take words, we take nonverbal, we take meanings, we do a number of things. We construct them in order to do the very best that we can to get our point across. So the idea of connecting the proverbial dots in the field of communication is just as important as connecting with each other. So that's a really important word. This person spends countless hours mentoring our children, which is a true gift of heart to our recipients, since she spends limitless childhood hours listening to stories told to her by her maternal grandmother. Some of you know who I'm talking about. Hearing tales about her great-great-grandmother, a slave, and most of her children sold into slavery, except for one child, this recipient's future grandmother. Curiosity fueled her passion for story and inspired not only excellence as a teller, but a children's librarian for over 2 decades at the Waco, McClellan County, and Hewitt Public Library, where she presented story programs as youth services librarian. This devotion to the power of story leads her to many celebrated moments, including her work for the Heart of Texas Storytelling Guild. And there are so many accomplishments to name, and each moment changed the lives of those fortunate enough to have been in her presence, especially our children, carefully and lovingly guided by this very special person, the recipient of this award. Mahatma Gandhi claimed that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Well, this year's recipient of the Colson-Hurton Award has certainly found herself, and as an association, we are better for it. I'm sure that you know who I'm referring to as this year's recipient of the Colson-Hurton Award, longtime TSA member, and our friend Vivian Rutherford. And with the magic of technology and David Claunch, here she is.
Oh.
MC left the bag, right? The MC left the bag.
Greetings, everyone. I am deeply honored to stand before you today and accept the Colson-Herndon Educators Award. To be acknowledged for something so close to my heart, storytelling and mentorship, is truly humbling. First, I must say how much I wish I could be there in person to accept the award. You all know there is something magical about being in the presence of fellow storytellers. And although I am not with you physically, please know that my heart is right there with you. Storytelling is more than just a way to entertain. It is a way to connect, to share experiences, and to understand the world and each other. From the earliest days of humanity, stories have been the threads that have woven us together. They've given meaning to our lives and just frankly help us make sense of our journey. As educators, we have the unique privilege of guiding others in discovering their own voices and the stories they are meant to tell. And whether it's been with a single student discovering the power of their words or a group of learners finding their collective narrative, I have always believed that the most important stories are those that are shared. Mentorship for me is about more than teaching a skill. It's about nurturing a passion, providing us a fun, safe space for exploration, and encouraging the storyteller to take risks, to dig deeper, and to trust in their own voice. The joy I have found in seeing the students' eyes light up when they realize the power of their story is priceless. And it is in those moments that I am reminded why I do what I do. This recognition is not just mine. It belongs to every storyteller that I have had the honor of mentoring. It belongs to those who have trusted me with their stories, who have allowed me to walk beside them as they explore the vast of their imagination, their memories, and their dreams. I also want to take a moment to thank those storytellers who have supported me along this journey. They are too numerous to name. Thank you so much. You've inspired me with your own dedication to the craft of storytelling. And I want to thank my student tellers who have taught me as much as I have taught them. A very special thank you goes to the Tejas Storytelling Association. And without Tejas's support, without the training and the platform that they provide, which allows us to share this knowledge, all of this would not have been possible. And of course, my family, whose love and encouragement have been the foundation of my work. In accepting this honor, I am filled with gratitude and a renewed commitment to continue the work of mentoring and storytelling. There is still so much to be done, so many voices waiting to be heard. And I look forward to the stories that have yet to be told. Secret? We may be starting a brand new teen storytelling group. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. And thank you for believing in the power of stories.
That was really great, and I talked to Vivian, and she was so utterly excited, so happy for her. You know, I want to thank Pam Pipkin, who helped me with the awards committee this year, and Kathy Culver, who will be taking over my position for the next 14 years as the awards. No, not that long, maybe a decade, but in any event, yeah. And I have really enjoyed it, and many of you know that. I take this very seriously, because it gives me an opportunity to learn about you on a different level. I see what you've done, and I find it astonishing. And that's not a word I use very often. The kind of creative efforts that you've issued with the field of storytelling, the people that you've mentored, the people you've taught, the stories you've told, the poignancy, the impact is pretty amazing. And I have the opportunity of knowing that firsthand by learning more about you. I always believe that this is really a committee that, in my humble opinion, is really one of the most important things we do, if not the most important. I always use the acronym R. We like to acknowledge, recognize, and endorse each other. So if I could leave you with that wish, I would like to. I would like you to please know the importance of acknowledging each other and recognizing each other, endorsing each other, letting each other know how much we matter. Because that's what families do, right? So thank you for that. You know, when my students ask me, or when I ask them, what surprises you most about learning a story, learning how to tell a story, almost all of them say it's a lot harder than I thought. And I say, yeah, you're right, you are. But you know, what really helps them, and I think what helps all of us, is to realize that we are all natural storytellers, and I mean that very literally. When we construct a story, we do something that most of us feel very natural at doing. In 1984, Dr. Walter Fisher at USC Communication Department founded what was called the narrative paradigm. And the narrative paradigm is, among other things, an assertion that humans are natural storytellers. We like to gather words and our nonverbal idiosyncrasies and behaviors to form meaning, and we love doing it in story form, because story form is fun. Any of you ever watched the Kaminsky Method? You know what series I'm talking about? Yeah. Some of you do. I'm always reminded of the story. I love that series, and you know, Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas and their friends, and Alan Arkin's wife dies, and Michael Douglas wants to spend some time with them, so they're at the grocery store buying some groceries, and Alan Arkin walks up to the grocery man and asks, what is your best ham? And the deli man says, they're all good. And Alan Arkin says, let me put it into story form. You just committed a heinous crime. You're guilty as hell. Nobody likes you. You're a pathetic human being. As a matter of fact, they want to fry you right now. But you, knowing that you've committed this, are happy to go to prison, waiting for your time to die. But you take that last dinner very seriously. And you are asked, what would you order for your last meal? You, of course, says ham, because that's your favorite. Which one would you order? And he says, well, I would order the honey baked. Okay, then I'll have a pound of honey baked ham, deli man. Yeah, so I always remember that because it's story form, right? Story form. Well, the narrative paradigm is a theory, but don't you dare be afraid of the word theory, because there isn't anything more practical than a good theory. And I believe that our keynote speaker is going to make that very, very clear. Our speaker is Dr. Lynn Harder. I met Lynn, and I even remember speaking to Ann Bainbridge, is that her name? Yeah, who was the director of the Communication Arts School. But as I said earlier, I swear to God, I have no idea where that was, but I'm sure it was at one of the national conventions. But it doesn't make any difference, because she clearly made an impression on me, because when we were looking for keynote speakers, she was really one of the first people that came to my mind, and David was kind enough to reach out to her, and we are kind enough and lucky enough to have her here today. And she is a terrific human being, even though I don't know why she is rooting for the University of Nebraska football team, but who cares? And I don't know why they're in the Big Ten either, but that's my issue. Okay. Dr. Harder is a professor and co-director of the Barbara Gerald's Institute for Storytelling and Social Impact in the School of Communication Studies at Ohio University, not Ohio State, Ohio University in Athens. Her work focuses on the impact communication has on individuals and groups as they adapt to social change. Her research and creative activity encompass issues ranging from pediatric cancer care, disability-related concerns, and organizing healthcare for historically excluded groups. Lynn is co-producer of the Emmy Award-winning documentary series, The Courage of Creativity, and senior editor of the academic journal Health Communication, and co-host and co-producer of the Defining Moments podcast. She has published over 80 journal articles and book chapters and edited 4 award-winning scholarly books. She has really mounted a sundry of accomplishments, certainly much too many to mention, but there are some that are very worth noting. She has an ability to connect those common denominators. I talked about that connection a little bit earlier. And one of the things that I find very unique about Lynn, and why she's really appropriate as our keynote speaker, is that she understands the power of connection. Everything is inextricably related. None of us are as good as all of us. Does that make sense? And I think that, right? And I think storytelling, in many ways, makes that clear. Some noteworthy examples. The Sue DeWine Distinguished Book Award in 2012, awarded to Participatory Partnerships for Social Action and Research by the Applied Communication Division of the National Communication Association, and a Distinguished Book Award in 2009, awarded to Narratives, Health, and Healing Communication Theory, Research and Practice by the Health Communication Division of the National Communication Association for significantly advancing theory and research. To call this a short list again is a dramatic understatement. The ways in which storytelling serves as a channel for communicating human messages is both very complex and confounding, but more importantly, it's very meaningful, especially to us, because we love to mold our thoughts, ideas, and images into story form. Storytelling touches every setting, every person, and as we know better than anyone else, it touches every heart. Lynn has been married for 30 years. Me too, just to 8 different women. Okay, I'm exaggerating. No, okay. She has a daughter who's a 7th grade teacher, and she loves dogs, and that says it all, right, about her character. Absolutely. We should have some time for questions after Lynn's presentation, which is entitled Brave Spacemaking, the Poetics and Politics of Storytelling. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Lynn Harder.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
16 to 10, your favorite.
Go Huskers!
There's a little bit of obnoxiousness in every brilliant mind.
Just keeping it real. Just keeping it real. So let me tell you what Hank didn't about myself that I think is important to frame what we'd like to talk about.
You ready?
Yes. So I grew up in a small rural town in the great state of Nebraska, about 30 miles south of Omaha. And I met my biological dad when I was 5 years old. And he and my stepmom later told me that when they met me, I was both malnourished and mute. I wasn't talking. It wasn't that I couldn't. When I entered first grade, I could read quite well. I could write, but I wasn't connecting with the world through speech. And by the grace of God, a lot of important forces in my life, and an artist, someone who today we might call an art therapist, I started to express myself through color and glitter and paper mache.
I don't know why it does that. I try to make it do it when I want to, but it always does it when I don't.
It's okay. I was hoping it was a score. What I will tell you is that by the time I was in 5th grade, my report card said, she talks a lot. Fast forward to my senior year in high school. And as I had grown up, I really came to think of myself as a boundary spanner. I moved between the worlds of my biological mom, who struggled with addiction, worked minimum wage jobs never to get beyond the poverty level, and my biological dad and stepmom, both of whom experienced more privilege in the world. My dad was a trial attorney and my stepmom an assistant superintendent. And I benefited from both of those worlds and continue to believe that they represent unique co-cultures. And I moved between them. My senior year, I went to our principal and I said, I'm one of those kids who qualify for free and reduced lunches. And I've taken advantage of that about 10 times over the course of 4 years. And I want to tell you why I haven't taken advantage of that safety net that can save a lot of people. Haven't because the cards for kids who qualify for that support, they're brown. And everybody else's card, it's white. So when you present that card, right, it's really easy to internalize the stigma that can accompany poverty. And so I would go out into my car, I would go into the bathroom, but rarely would I eat lunch. And I think it was the first time that I realized the emancipatory potential of storytelling. I didn't necessarily benefit from sharing that, but I know that other kids did, right, after I graduated. Now, what I didn't think about at the time was why was that lunch card brown when everybody else's card was white? I wasn't thinking about things like race. I was thinking about class and poverty. And it wasn't until 15 years later that I started to think more deeply about what I consider to be an intersectional frame for understanding the standpoint of storytellers and witnesses and how so many markers of difference shape our positionality. So I went to college, and I went to college to be a social worker because I envisioned social workers as boundary spanners, right? People that move between. And to this day, a fundamental question that I carry with me out into the world, into classrooms, in the scholarship that I do is what allows people to thrive in the midst of seemingly inhospitable conditions. How is human flourishing interwoven with suffering? I quickly realized that I was not well suited to social work, but I continued to get a degree in sociology, and for my honors thesis, I worked for a shelter for people without homes. And they had for many years collected intake data from people who came to seek shelter from them. And so this was self-report, and a lot of things have remained the same when we're looking at the complex issue of homelessness in the US. About 30% of people who came to the shelter reported dealing with substance use disorders. Didn't use that terminology at the time, but that's what they were talking about. About another 30% described struggling with mental well-being. And then there's a lot of people who are dually diagnosed. And at the time, when I look back on my younger self, I think I was probably really proud of the work that I did, patted myself on the back, was able to create a statistical portrait for the shelter that they could use to apply for funds to address not just an immediate need, but some of the underlying issues contributing to that need, right, for shelter. It wasn't until I went on to graduate school that I paused and I started to think about the stories that we tell with the numbers that we collect. And that's when I started to think about the very dangerous nature of storytelling. So when I was in graduate school and I took an entire class on the work of Kenneth Burke, a literary scholar who started writing 1920s, 1930s, read 11 of his great works in one term and looked back on that thesis and said, wow, the story that I helped narrate about homelessness is one that is rooted in individual factors and individual choices. And while that's not inherently problematic, it's partial. What wasn't included in that story were forces like a lack of low-income housing and processes of deinstitutionalization that continue to lead many people to find home on a street as they're struggling for well-being. Since that time, I've become deeply passionate about thinking with stories in terms of both how they enable us and constrain us, how they open up possibilities and shut doors. So I'm deeply committed to thinking about both the poetic, the artful nature of what happens when we try to make sense of our experiences and the inherently political nature of that. So today, tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit about things I've been wrestling with, the work that I do. I teach in both a medical school and in a college of communication. So by virtue of the context that I immerse myself in, some of the stories that I will share might be triggering for some of you. So I want you to know ahead of time that I hope that this is a brave space. I've started to move away from thinking about spaces as safe because I think that there are so many people who have never felt safe. And I think brave spaces demand courage. They demand leaning into vulnerability. They demand a willingness to undo in order to become, to engage in perspective taking. And I want you to know that I realize that people are at varying spaces in their own healing journeys, and for some of you, some of this material might feel too raw and too close, and please feel free to leave if you need to, and I will not be offended. So I want to start by inviting you into a story. Oh, Joey, okay. Let's see if I can do this without hurting myself, not trip, have a mic, and I'm dangerous. Okay, so I'll start with this image. And I invite you to pay attention to it, to the colors and the textures. And my question is, what do you think happened right before the photo was snapped? And what happened after? What's going on here?
Surgery?
Surgery, okay, so what makes you say surgery?
Only
Maybe he's
because
right.
you work in med school or no.
Okay, so
Before that, I thought it was clay. I thought it was
The texture of the fabric, like that,
the sterile towel.
yeah, the steri strips or whatever the.
Okay. I love the fact that you're all just joining in. I really appreciate the person who said, thank you for that. That's awesome.
How about this one too?
How does this feel for you?
This is great.
That feels very bright. Okay. I appreciate that you were thinking about this, and I would say intertextually related to what I was talking about, my own positionality. Right?
It looks like a fork in food.
Looks like a fork in food. Is it Brooke?
Yes.
Okay, Brooke. Interesting. So, no, it's not. Yes, it is in the midst of a surgical procedure.
They
Just-
don't, they use, it looks like flannel rather than sheets covered.
Yeah. In fact, when COVID hit and we ran out of masks, a lot of nonprofits started using this surgical material to create masks. So many of you were paying attention to that aspect of the photo. What do we think this surgical procedure is? Heart? Heart. Who said heart?
Me, Sandra.
Sandra. Close, but no, not a heart.
Doesn't look anything like brain, to me.
Okay? You're right, it's not.
Okay?
Liver, no.
Lung.
It's a lung.
Lung?
It's a lung, yes. For me, when I first saw it, I thought it looked like a tongue.
I thought it was at the dentist or something.
Yeah. So this is the lung of a then 16-year-old Caitlin Shoup. And she'd been diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is a form of cancer, typically presents as a fist-sized tumor at the end of a femur. And when it metastasizes, if it does, it typically metastasizes to the lungs. So her oncologist said there's some fuzzy spots on a recent scan, and we need to do a transthoracic biopsy to see if the cancer has spread. Yeah, transthoracic biopsy. So you know what Caitlin said? She's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't know what you're going to do to my body. It's a language I don't understand. So she asked if the team could take photos during the procedure,
Oh, wow.
so that she could see what was happening to her body
Smart girl.
and not just hear it. Right at 16 years old. 16. What I found really fascinating is that Caitlin and her mom then went on to scrapbook. the cancer experience. So whereas most teenagers include photos from prom and movie ticket stubs, defining moments of a life. And those are in Caitlin's scrapbooks, alongside the many procedures that she went through in that healing process. And it was something that her and her mom did together. And very much like when I was a child and an artist helped me to express myself, and then those artistic expressions became a scaffold for expressing my voice. When you look at her scrapbook, she integrates material artifacts, the wristband, right? Test results, images. Her and her mom write stories. The cancer had not metastasized, but she did undergo many other procedures. So this is a procedure where oftentimes when you have osteosarcoma or other cancers that affect the bone, you have to have limb salvage surgeries. And metal rods or human donor bones are used to put your leg back together. When that happens, there's a great likelihood that the donor bone or the metal rod can lead to sepsis and infections. And that's happened with Caitlin. So here you see a surgical procedure where they're opening up her leg. This right here, these are antibiotic beads that they placed in her leg. They're antibiotic beads, and they dissolve slowly over time. So her leg is open for an extended period of time, and they dissolve. I think they look like garlic. They're not. But again, she's taking photos of the hardware and kind of expressing what does it mean when you have a staph infection. And you put that alongside her photos from homecoming. And the courage it takes as a young woman to go to a dance with no hair.
Go to a dance?
A dance.
Prom.
Ah.
I mean, right? I'm humbled. I'm humbled, right? When I draw inspiration from Caitlin's story. I share this with you. This is part of a lesson that we developed in a narrative medicine program at our medical school. And it's an elective course for first and second year medical students. And the goal of that is to really encourage our future healthcare providers to understand that while medicine typically is identified as a science, that we can reframe it as a science using narrative craft. We can reframe medicine as a science using narrative, interpretive craft. So when I talk about narratives, and this resonates with the many splendid conversations that I've got to be a part of today, starting with Kim. I also got to participate in a session led by Michael and Warren. I don't know if Warren is still here or not. Across conversations, people talked about kind of disruption. At the heart of narrative and storytelling are expectations gone awry. And plot is the process by which we make sense of that. And we make sense of it in time and space. We organize characters, they're connected in webs of relationships, and those plots are consequential. Again, I go back to those plots can enable us and they can constrain us. Stories are not inherently therapeutic, although I've dedicated my life to trying to amplify the therapeutic potential and minimize when they become dangerous companions for walking through the world. What I'm really interested in at the Storytelling Institute is what I think of as deep narrative transformation, where we work to interrupt and shift dominant societal stories that limit human potential. So one of the stories that Hank and I were talking about earlier is like this dominant narrative of aging is decline. And as I'm in my 5th year of living and experience all the changes that come with that, I really try to resist this. And sometimes it's hard, right? Other times I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I'm past that phase in life. And there are times when I'm like, youth is wasted on the young. So I'm interested in those broader narratives that are equipment for living. They inform the personal stories that we share, even if we're not aware of that. And I think if there's something that I can offer you all, because all of the people I saw speak today are much more gifted storytellers than I am. What I hope I can offer is questions that allow you to think about when you are sharing your stories or creating and holding space for other people to share their stories. How are those stories working? What are those stories doing for people? Kim, I believed you called this action, right? The final ball in
Newton's cradle.
Yeah, Newton's cradle. I think that's brilliant, and I have an idea for you
Oh, good, I'll take it.
about how to publish it
Oh, okay.
so that you can disseminate it, and it's copyrighted, and
Thank
you
you.
get credit. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
I believe that if we want to shift political, economic, social realities, that we need to think about the narratives that we live by and maybe reimagine those narratives. So for me, I'm interested in moving between the stories of people's lives as they are experienced and shared, and the broader stories that inform how we narrate our experience. And in turn, our stories can challenge those. I think that sustainable change must involve a shift in the narrative nature of our world, just as it often involves economic and political change. So my goal today is to give you a few examples of how I've witnessed this, how I've tried to be a part of living this out, right? This process of brave space making. So I want to show you, and this is a 10-minute compilation of a documentary series for PBS that I did. And so you're getting just a little bit of 3 documentaries that are a part of this. And if you all email me, I can send you hidden YouTube links to these, because you can stream them on Amazon, but I wouldn't want you to have to pay to do that. So I would be happy to share links so that you can watch these. But right now, we're going to watch a 10-minute kind of overview of all 3.
Sustainable change.
Yes. Nope, the other one. It's already 8:30.
You want to tell me what to draw to? You have an idea?
Elephant?
An
An elephant? I love elephants. Okay.
One of the things that I'm amazed by in making art in a hospital setting is the level of buoyancy in people's spirits, a reverence and a celebration wrapped into one. And I think that that comes from your life being on the edge, and that in many, many cases, getting to that edge is life-affirming rather than life-threatening.
You know, art can be a dusty thing on a shelf, and it can be a vibrant, live thing in a community. It basically allows for all of what we already have to bubble up and come together and diffuse into something that we can have a shared experience around and to see evidence of each other's beauty.
I'll use any color you want.
Just pink.
Okay. Pink cowboy hat to match your pants?
It's a pink cowboy girl.
Cowgirl hat. I keep saying cowboy, but that's just because that's what I'm used to.
You just gotta say cowgirl,
Okay,
not
now
cowboy.
I'm gonna try this time. To work in the arts and healthcare context is a unique point of view on how to help patients. The thing that grants us such a unique perspective is that we have an opportunity to connect with the patients around what's meaningful to them, not around their immediate medical needs.
A child can become engrossed in his work or her work, even when they're extremely uncomfortable, and can focus their attention on what they're doing, tune out their physical discomfort, and that really is something that's fascinating to watch.
Green, Mommy, you think you like green? Here's green for you, Mama.
Okay.
I believe that the art motivates her. She's had a couple of surgeries and has done extensive chemo and radiation. She's just been here, just lying in bed. Didn't want to get up, sick, throwing up. But as soon as the doors open and Ian walks in, it's all over. And then when I come back, it's like there was never anything wrong.
Yeah, maybe you could help pull the tree down so that the elephant could eat it.
The elephants don't eat trees.
What? They don't eat leaves?
Peanuts.
They eat peanuts? Oh, okay.
Giraffes eat leaves.
Giraffes eat leaves. You're right. You're right.
The Arts and Medicine program at MD Anderson is a powerful reminder to all of us that there is a very human side to the story of medicine and medical science.
The potential for imagination to explode in a room. There's certain potential for imagination to transform reality in a hospital room. And I think that's it's more powerful than you might think.
But I wish I was a catfish swimming in the deep blue sea. I'd have all the pretty women here swimming after me, swimming after me, yeah.
It's just such a gift. I feel like Santa Claus. I go to a room, I put my fist up to knock, I knock 4 times, and I just think, oh my goodness, I have something gorgeous to give you.
It's a part of your day, it could be the only part of your day that somebody's not asking for, waking you up or wanting to take your blood or making you walk when you don't feel like it, or I'm not asking anything from them. So I think it's part of their day they might want to remember.
Let me just go ahead.
God bless you.
Did I hug you? You won't let me, or will you let me?
You have to be able to say, hey, here is somebody who is really sick. They're in pain. And then you walk into their room. Now, that's the challenge. How are you going to even wheel this person in so that they can, have a conversation with you? Yeah, good. Okay, good. Yeah, good man. You ready?
We need to remember, we need to take into account that we're dealing with complex, spirited, vigorous, vital human beings. We're not dealing with just somebody laying in a bed. We have to deal with a series of inputs on various measuring mechanisms and then base a decision on. We're dealing with souls, spirits, and humans, and that's part of what the art is there to remind us about as well.
You actually drum me out. Yeah. You are a very good drummer, man. You're a very, very good drummer.
I'm really attracted to hanging out with people who are perceived as having developmental disabilities. I like to make big, giant art projects. So I want to combine those two things. I am completely addicted to creating the scenarios where people are supported, invited to feel all of these levels of risk, vulnerability, identify courage, and then do it.
And once you present people with different types of opportunities, and particularly creative opportunities, then their whole world begins to change.
I also see the impact that it has within the change of culture in creating creative spaces within places where it was never considered before.
In my mind, it's time to look at other things for people to do that will engage different parts of who they are. And they're just so open and so ready and so interested and curious, about what's out there and what's possible, that they'll just jump right in.
That's the first time I ever painted in my life. It's the first time I painted.
Courage and creativity are very connected in that they both require a leap into the unknown. In that way also, I think there's a relationship between courage, creativity, and faith. You are accepting that there's things that you don't know. You are accepting that there are things that you will never know. You're accepting that there's things that you will not be able to define. And you're accepting that you are not the only hand holding the paintbrush.
Here you go.
That pen? All right.
Right here.
You want to be standing on the elephant's head?
No. Right
On his back. That's what I was guessing.
That's the struggle that I celebrate with people, because it translates that into other areas of life. And just offering the opportunities for people to come forward and just manipulate materials, right? And then it's like, oh, I can. And so that struggle of penetrating that first barrier can get you into the land of plenty, because we are so powerful. We are so powerful inside here.
I mean, I definitely don't want the conversation to end. You know what I mean? I feel that it's just kind of getting good.
Nice job, David. Tech assistant.
bringing up my notes to make sure that I get this correct. So this morning, after the magical bubble show,
Yeah.
Kim was talking to us about what's put in motion when a story is shared. And I think it was the third metal ball in the metaphor, that was worldview. That then informs the axis of attitude, behavior. So my question for you, if we assume that stories are not neutral and that they are value laden, that worldviews are embedded within them, what worldviews are we perceiving in this compilation of stories? And then so what? If we assume them to be value laden, that there are certain worldviews embedded in them, what does that call us to do, and who does it call us to be? Yeah.
The arts bring pure joy to all.
Art brings joy.
Art brings joy.
I think we see ill people as ill people and not multidimensional and able to really have so many more dimensions than just the illness. Sometimes we limit them, and they're so unlimited in how they can express themselves.
There was a genius storyteller, and he sang a song about I want to be a dog. Does anyone know his name?
Barry Polisar.
Huh?
Barry Polisar.
Barry Polisar?
Oh,
No, that's the guy who made the song. But who was the guy who sang the song at a festival?
Oh, David Goodrow.
Huh?
Oh, David!
Yeah, he's,
Pitch me up.
no,
Jay
but,
Staley
no,
also.
Polisar, I bought his CD, all right? But somebody sang it, and somebody else than Dave, your husband, sang it at the...
Jay Staley also sings.
Jay Staley. All right, he interviewed dying people in hospice and asked them about, I'm going to try to figure out how to get your email connected with his email with my AI. All right.
That's awesome.
Now, we'll say it again. What's his name?
Jay Staley.
Jay Staley?
Thank you.
And going to what you were saying, discovering new connections. So here's somebody that supposedly, has this illness or this problem, but using the arts to come in to bring them a new connection that brings another level.
I'm going to speak to your why does it matter, just in a broad sense. I think that the first thing that kind of came to my mind was more of a larger sociological concept of the stories that we create as a culture and a society, help shape what the next generation sees, thinks, does, feels, interacts with, and you can see that across generational lines, especially if you look at the LGBTQ movement that's occurred. Even, I feel like I'm poised in the middle, right? Like my generation's kind of